Hey, it's Dominic D'Angelo. I'm actually at free shows today, but I'm still here. I am Rumor and Innuendo. Well, I'm on Rumor and Innuendo with my co-host Robert Karplis. Robert, if you think I am the Oracle of Conrad Thompson, you would be right.
Well, I can tell you're not Conrad Thompson because I don't hear labored breathing. So we're doing fine here. Yes, Conrad. Sorry, that's not Conrad. That is Dominic D'Angelo, the masked man behind that screen. Dominic D'Angelo, for those of you joining us live on video, is still in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, and was broadcasting from his balcony, and it was super laggy. And some folks yesterday had pointed out that his video was looking a little lethargic, a little slow. So we decided let's just go with a still image. And instead of a great awkward picture of Dom in a tank top pointing at the camera, we've got the ad free shows logo, which is a great way to remind you that we are on ad free shows streaming live on their YouTube page, as well as on YouTube on Rumor and Innuendo, Working Stiff, and on X on SC Scoops and WWE Creative _ISH.
That's correct, Robert. And wow, what a way to start a Wednesday with a go-home episode of the Dynamite before AEW All In. They got a pretty good card lined up for a go-home show. What one of the matches we expected maybe was going to be on All In card itself, but we're getting Claudio Castagnoli with Nogli.
No, you're not allowed to get away with that. Let's try saying that name again, Dom.
Let's do it. Claudio Castagnoli, right?
Castagnoli.
Dang it.
This is why they changed his name to Cesaro, by the way. Cesaro, it still sounds exotic. It still sounds foreign. It still sounds exceptionally Swiss, but it is a lot easier to pronounce than Claudio Castagnoli. And I say this is a man with his own very difficult to pronounce last name. I will shout out here before we get to the Dynamite, before the All In. We got Alt Jake joining us. Good morning. Another day, another tweet from the sheets saying the Warner Brothers Discovery AEW is closer. At this rate, I think we're closer to Mania in London than the ever elusive deal. Dre Owens, good after morning. The Dynamite All In preview. The Wrestling Old Head, good after morning to everyone. And Wrestling Old Head correctly points out 17 matches for All In and 12 dark matches. I certainly hope not.
My God, is that
We ain't got all day, man. But what's crazy is those of you right now who are over in the UK. I know this Dynamite is in Cardiff. It should be starting soon. There's a 5-hour time difference, so it's 5 o'clock there. The show probably has a local time of my guess is doors are probably at 7. So the spoilers, the results of this show will be up long before the actual show. But as of now, we don't know what's going to happen, so we're not giving away spoilers. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be telling you them even if I
folks,
did
can you hear
know.
me? Can you hear Robert? Love the
Now,
tech stuff.
wait, what, Tom?
Are
Why'd you
we good?
interrupt? Yeah,
Oh,
I was talking. Did you not hear
okay.
me?
I know I wasn't hearing you. I'm glad you were saying stuff though, because I couldn't hear anything.
Good Lord. Damn it, Dom. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, we would never give away spoilers here on the show. So if you're listening to this and you in audio when it gets posted a little later, assuming Dom actually posts it, and you're like, oh man, I hope they don't spoil Dynamite. That's not our bag. That's not our show. This is Rumor and Innuendo, not spoil your good time. That's more often than not Tony Khan. Dom, are you with us? Earth to Dom. All right, we're going to assume that Dom has fallen into some sort of black hole somewhere. So I will just handle, since we can't hear you. I'm texting him to let him know that we can't hear him.
Robert, can you hear me
Oh,
now?
dude, this is brutal. Yes, I can now
Isn't
hear
it
you.
bad?
It's bad because I can't necessarily hear you. This is yeah. Thank you, Alt Jake here. 0 days without a Dom mistake. This isn't Dom's
Robert,
issue.
I'm gonna text you. I'm gonna text you.
What a thrill that'll be
You
for me. Just
dang it!
stay on
You
mute.
might have to
Stay on
run the
mute.
show yourself.
Tom, just stay on
Okay.
mute. Keep the screen up so it doesn't mess up the box. I'll run things here. I'll drive. This is less Tom's issue and more the fact that Las Vegas, Nevada internet is not the best. So he's trying his best. He's at the balcony at his hotel. It was working fine the last 2 days. Today, a little less cooperative. Clearly, they want Dom down at the tables. They want him playing craps right now instead of his audio sounding like craps. But the good news is I've got the run sheet here that Mr. D'Angelo has provided. So I will be steering us through the Dynamite preview here on the Rumor and Innuendo. Quick comment here from Dre Owens, who says, tag in Mike Lawrence. I'll get this plug out of the way right now. Mike Lawrence made a surprise appearance yesterday on the Working Stiff Patreon with myself and Scott Chaplin, second week in a row where we talked a number of interesting AEW things, one of which I will touch on here, as well as went down a strange rabbit hole around action figures. So if that's your bag, if that's your world, if that's your thing, definitely go check that out. But the thing of note yesterday that we were talking about, the catalyst for our conversation, was the fact that it was on August 20th, 2021, as Dom has now vanished entirely, and now I'm just on my own screen. So that's fun. I wish there was a graphic I could put up or a producer who could put the graphic up for me. In the meantime, the it was the 3-year anniversary of CM Punk showing up on AEW. And it's just kind of wild to think about what the world looked like back in 2021, especially the AEW landscape versus what it looks like right now in 2024. And when you see the change, when you see the shift and what's gone on in AEW, it makes it kind of funny because Tony Khan was on Barstool Sports, and I'm jumping to this quote before we get to the Dynamite preview. But Tony Khan said it's a really exciting time for the company. I think it's the most exciting time in the history of the company right now. We're coming up. We've got this massive event. We're just days away from AEW All in London, Wembley Stadium. It's a huge, huge event. There's a lot of cool things happening in the company right now. And it's very tough to hear a comment like that and then realize that, 3 years ago, I would say was probably one of, if not the most exciting time for All Elite Wrestling. You had the debut of CM Punk. Then a little bit later, you had the debut of Bryan Danielson. You were really operating on all cylinders, and it felt like there was this sense of unbridled optimism that this company can make the things that people want to see happen. They can give you the 5-star matches. They can let wrestlers tell the stories that they want to be able to tell, that they weren't being allowed to tell over in WWE with Vince McMahon in control. More importantly, they're going to let a guy like Bryan Danielson wrestle when he could not get cleared by WWE. More importantly, they were going to bring CM Punk back to pro wrestling when Punk had been completely done with the industry. He was sick of it. He hated everyone. He hated everything. We were never going to see that guy again. And it's crazy now, 3 years later, going into what is essentially their WrestleMania. And unfortunately, the big story with AEW sort of continues to be the delineation, the dissolving of the momentum that they had 3 short years ago. They had lightning in a bottle, and now here we are. Cody Rhodes is obviously firing on all cylinders in WWE. We're seeing talent left and right who are jumping ship to World Wrestling Entertainment. We had seen that directionally going to Tony's direction with Rusev, with Malachi Black, with Buddy Murphy, with Andrade. These guys who felt they were not being used properly. Keith Lee. And then they go to AEW and realize the grass is not greener. And Andrade has obviously already come back. You see a guy like Ethan Page, who's jumped to WWE and is now NXT champion. It looks like Ricky Starks is going to be joining WWE. So AEW really needs to capitalize on the momentum that they have going into All In this year. Part of the challenge for All In is it's a little bit of a retread of last year for them because it's the same venue, it's the same building. And what kind of blows my mind a little bit here is they've announced that next year All In is taking place in Dallas. That's a great venue. That's a huge stadium. That's a really unique opportunity for them to do a stadium show in the United States in a major wrestling city, in a city that has hosted WrestleManias before. However, we had talked about All In 2024 as feeling like it was going to be the show, even several months ago, where we were going to see Will Ospreay become AEW World Champion. That he was going to be anointed the man, the guy, the unquestionable superstar in his home country in a packed stadium of 50 to 70,000 fans who would have gone banana, as Pat Patterson would say. And knowing that it wasn't happening this year, that we're getting Osprey and MJF, but we're getting Osprey and MJF in an American title match, an international title match, whatever that may be. So you were like, okay, maybe we're not going to get it this year, but by God, next year at All In, we're not getting that moment now either. And it feels like a genuine missed opportunity. Osprey has an excitement, an energy, a uniqueness to him where he does feel like the kind of singular talent who could turn the tide. Younger fans might not fully understand or appreciate that, but when WWE was WWF and they were tanking against WCW and they needed something, it was the heat of Steve Austin that really started bringing people over. And one person can shift the tide from one company to another. And Will Ospreay is the kind of talent in the ring, on the microphone, public interviews, a charisma to him that could definitely, shift the sea change, if you will, for AEW. And him and MJF feels like a main event program. So it would have made perfect sense for this to have been for the AEW title at All In, headlining Wembley. It's not. And that we're not getting that next year just feels a little odd. The Dynamite preview. There's some things on here that are a little surprising. We are getting not one, but two different segments to hype the Chris Jericho versus Hook match that we are going to see at All In. Perhaps the least anticipated match as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to speak for Dom, but Dom can't speak right now, so I'm going to speak for him and say it's probably the least interested match that he has as well. And they are dedicating two different matches to this. One of them is Big Bill versus Hook. So I get that AEW has run this notion before, the idea of you have to run through all of these different people in order to get to me. We've seen it with Jericho before. We've seen it with MJF before. We've seen it with Kenny Omega before. Like it becomes a little bit of a trope. It becomes something that does feel a bit repetitive. And the fact that we're getting it, despite the fact that the match has already been signed for All In, like win, lose, or draw, Hook is going to be facing Jericho at the pay-per-view. So yes, it's softening him up and all that, but it's not going to help Big Bill. And Big Bill has sort of been booked similar to a guy like Lance Archer, where we get that he's big, we get that he's tall, we get that he's strong, we get that he is a unique attraction, but we're still just going to beat him like he's anybody else. And there is no way in which Bill is beating Hook. It would make zero sense whatsoever, outside of some sort of outside interference, chicanery, something. But then you got Chris Jericho, who's wrestling Dynamite Kid, Tommy Billington. So obviously, Tommy, the son of the late Dynamite Kid, he is a new acquisition, a new signee for AEW. And this feels like the veteran Chris Jericho taking on a young talent who, if he wins, you're going to make a star out of him. If he loses, of course, he's going to lose. And yet, what we've seen over and over again is when Jericho does wrestle a younger talent or an up and coming talent, and they get a win over him, it hasn't boosted them. It hasn't helped their career. We saw him beat Orange Cassidy in his feud. We saw him. We saw Jericho lose to Sammy Guevara. Action Andretti, who caught a pin on Jericho, didn't really go anywhere. And I don't see this Hook feud necessarily elevating Hook, but there's no way it's necessarily elevating the new Dynamite Kid. So it feels very self-indulgent by Chris. It feels like this is a waste of valuable time on the go home Dynamite. If you need to hype this match, give it one segment. I don't need two. There is nothing currently listed on the preview for tonight's show, that is hyping the tag title match or the 6-man tag title match that's going on. Yet 2 things dedicated to Chris Jericho, who has also now announced that he is going to be performing with Fozzy at All In, which means not only are we getting a Chris Jericho match, we're going to have to listen to a Jericho Fozzy song. I'm begging, guys. I am absolutely begging. There's going to be an MJF Will Ospreay face to face. I think these guys will have some fun. I think that we're going to get an interesting promo. MJF has been leaning very heavily on a little bit more stereotypical heel stuff. We have not seen the wit and witticism that we've seen from Max in the past. It's been a lot of just, well, you're foreign, so you're stupid. You're an indie guy, so you're stupid. And yet Max is wrestling on Rev Pro shows. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Yet I more importantly, I don't understand why MJF cares about a secondary title. He has always been built as a guy who believes I'm better than you, and that he's richer than everybody else, and he was born into greatness. But the one thing you can't buy is being world champion. So winning the world title, becoming the world champion, was his single motivating factor. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would care about a secondary title, let alone care about defending that secondary title. He's embracing the JBL of it all. Him and Ospreay will have a pretty good back and forth segment. I think that feud has been pretty well built up, but you want to put your top stars on the show. I'm never going to fault that. We're going to see I can't believe this is real. The AEW Women's World Championship match is Timeless Tony Storm versus Saraya. So I gave them some grief when they had Hikaru Shida challenge Mercedes Moné for the TNT title, or TBS title, I'm sorry, last week, where I'm going, well, you already have a title match set. This is a company that loves tournaments, that loves eliminator matches, that loves every reason possible to set up an obstacle or a barrier before defending your title. And now, a few short days before All In, Toni Storm is defending the women's title, and she's defending the women's title against Saraya, who is very much an AEW cautionary tale for some of those WWE folks. You know, she came over and she has not been a central focus of AEW programming. Some of that due to injury, some of that due to just poor booking. Devin Dowling right here in the comments said this could be Saraya's last AEW match. Her current contract is up. There's nothing that we know as to whether or not she's signing, re-signing, looking elsewhere. She may be very happy. She may be good with the paycheck and the limited dates, and she wants to stick around there. She's had an up and down relationship with Triple H in the past, but it's very, very odd to give away a title match a few days before you have a pretty solid title storyline. The Toni Storm Mariah May feud has been booked so well, and you've seen great promos, video packages, genuine moments in their women's division, which is something that they have been lacking. I do not want to see a women's world title match a few days beforehand. It strains credibility to think that, yes, Saraya is just going to win, and there goes everything. It's kind of odd. It's good for the local crowd. Hey, they're going to see Saraya. They're probably going to go nuts for Saraya. They're going to be really excited to see a hometown person. Yes, Toni Storm, she's not really a hometown person there, obviously, given that she's Australian. But I think that the audience booing Toni in any way, shape, or form takes away from the story of her and Mariah May. I would not be doing this. If anything, it should have been Mariah May taking on Saraya and doing something horrible to Saraya, who don't comment there if she's a babyface or a heel. It doesn't matter. I think that what ultimately is going to happen is we'll get some sort of schmaz, some sort of whatever. I would rather see Mariah May take on Saraya. And then there is the Continental Championship match, Kazuchika Okada versus Claudio Castagnoli. This is going to be a hell of a match. This is going to probably get 18 to 20 minutes on TV, and it is going to be a, let's say 4 or 5 star match. The reason why you do something like that on a pre-tape show, and this was a strategy we had in WWE, was they know that people are going to read the spoilers online. They're going to know if there's a big surprise moment. But if you put out into the spoilers ecosystem, out into the ether, this idea that there is a hell of a match that you have to see that's going to be on this tape show that's airing in a few hours, people are going to tune in and see it. And the UK crowd, the Cardiff crowd, is going to lap up and appreciate every moment of a 5-star match. It's surprising to me that Okada does not have a signature match at All In. We know that he is one of their big acquisitions of 2024. I think that Mercedes Moné, Will Ospreay, and Kazuchika Okada are the 3 big names that Tony Khan wants to hold up and say, I signed them, I got them, they're here. And so not having Okada have a fixed match on the pay-per-view feels like a missed opportunity. The match with him and Claudio is the kind of thing that would fit in well on an all-in card. We're getting it here. It's on free TV. It's a great reason for you to tune in to watch Dynamite. We'll be honest, we know you were going to tune in to watch Dynamite anyway. The last thing they've got is a final showdown. Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland, moderated by Nigel McGuinness. And this is intriguing, because we know that Nigel McGuinness and Bryan Danielson have a history. Nigel, in character, has been so anti Bryan Danielson that it felt like we were potentially setting up a Nigel Bryan match. So you do potentially run a little bit of the risk of the heat getting passed from Swerve to Nigel. I think the world of Nigel. I don't believe that he's really in the condition to wrestle the kind of match that you would want to see out of Nigel McGuinness. And much in the same way I said this about Big E, I don't want someone risking their health and their well-being for a match. The irony here is that's exactly what Bryan Danielson is doing. And I don't know if this is a work or if this is a shoot. So I'm going to look at it from 2 different ways. My working stiff co-host, Scott Chaplin, who clearly believes in like lizard people and that the world is flat, believes this is all a work. But Bryan has said in interviews, his contract is already up. He has said in interviews he needs to go in for neck surgery sooner rather than later by the end of the year. He has said in interviews part of the reason why he is walking away and retiring is because he wants to be home with his children, because his daughter wants a dad more than she wants a world champion. Whether that is all true, whether that is all storyline, it doesn't make him compelling or interesting to watch in a good way for me. I am a big Bryan Danielson fan. I've been a big Bryan Danielson fan going back to his Ring of Honor days. I remember getting to watch a lot of that footage when I was at WWE. We would get the Ring of Honor DVDs, or we would get the Ring of Honor feeds, and we would watch, and you would see Danielson working. Like, man, that guy is incredible. I remember when he got signed by NXT. And he first got let go in that unfortunate Justin Roberts situation, how disappointed I was. It does not make me want to watch a match where I know that the man genuinely needs to go in for neck surgery and he's going to give it his all because it's his last match, which means there is a risk, a higher risk than normal, that he could be injured. I don't love the fact that they're going to have the family ringside. I know I said that as a way to, if you want to make this thing personal, you put Brie and the girls there, or the kids there, but I don't want to see his daughter watching what's happening to him. For 2 reasons. Number 1, either she knows it's a work and he's telling her, like, look, you're 7. This is all pretend. I'm 100% fine, but you're going to watch me suffer. And she has to react in a way where she's pretending that it's real. I say this as a parent. I don't want to see my child crying. I don't want to see my child upset or distraught or having to pretend to be crying or distraught. And if it's not good, if it's not believable, if Birdie isn't selling that she thinks dad's about to die, then fans are going to be all over this as being bad and unwatchable and taking away from a great match. If she isn't fully comprehending that this is a work and she thinks that what she is seeing in any way, shape, or form could be real, even if Bryan is just selling really, really well, that's disturbing for your child to have to watch. It bugs me. There's a comment here from Devin. Can it work with just Brie? Yes. I think that what you the best way that this would work is Swerve pleading with Bree, take the kids to the back. Don't let them see what happens to their father. Keep them locked away in the room. I'm going to fulfill my promise. I'm going to fulfill my destiny to end Bryan Danielson. But if you value your children, you will keep them in the back. And just Bree there. She knows how to sell it. She knows how to cry. She knows how to, scream about it and plead and beg and all the things that you want from a sympathetic wife. The involvement of the kids, it doesn't sit well with me. Usually I'm not going to be overly sensitive about it. I think, again, it is the parental thing. I know that when Gable lost to Gunther and they cut to Gable's daughter crying, it was a different kind of upset. It's you wanted daddy to win, daddy didn't win. Wasn't great, but it was emotional. It wasn't daddy may be paralyzed the rest of his life, and all I want is a father who's going to be home to take care of me and play with me. I don't know. That's Dynamite. We will cover Dynamite tomorrow when Dom is back up and running. But right now, I want to touch on there's one last quote here. It's a Paul Heyman quote talking about Triple H on the Sam Roberts show. He said, I can tell you, I've always been a Paul Levesque guy. I've always had a lot of respect for Paul Levesque. I met him for the first time when we had ECW participation on Monday Night Raw. I met him backstage. I don't know what the conversation was completely, but it was about Killer Kowalski. The appreciation that he had for the history of the business, for the vision that he had as much love as I love the past, and I'm grounded in the rudimentary and fundamental ways of the business. We have to push it forward. Even back then in 97, I was like, wow, this guy has his finger on the pulse of the, and since Dom isn't even here to defend himself, that's where he cut off the quote when he posted it. So Hunter has his finger on the pulse of something. I love that was Heyman's impression of Hunter way back in 1997 when he was still kind of the blue blood, when he was the aristocratic Hunter Hearst Helmsley, that he has this old school appreciation for the business, that he was obviously trained by Kowalski. He has a love of Harley Race. He has an understanding of what makes wrestling tick. And that was all Paul needed to see back then to know this is a guy I can work with. It's clear they're working beautifully together right now. It's clear that Dom and I, when Dom is usually here, are working beautifully. Dom will be back tomorrow with functional internet, regardless of what those folks in Las Vegas believe. I will promote Dom's other shows, even though he is not here, and he makes sure that the Wi-Fi works for that show. And it is in no way, shape, or form a ranking or anything. But he hosts a podcast with Rob Van Dam. Comes out every Monday at 4:20 p.m. on rvdtv.com. He also hosts Straight Talk with the Boss, Magnum TA, and Greg Gagne. That comes out, I believe, on Thursdays, wherever you get your podcasts. Most importantly, he is the producer of Working Stiff with myself and Scott Chaplin, which drops every Thursday afternoon on iTunes, Spotify, and the like. Same place you can get the audio version of this episode, Rumor and Innuendo. And if you were tuning in for the audio version, you would have no idea that Dom was having terrible, terrible video issues, except for the fact that he was having terrible, terrible audio issues. And best of all, I saw he put a comment in the section. I was going to go put it up and realized he swore in the comment. He posted profanity in the comment. Dude, damn it, Dom, I'm begging you. But you can catch us, as I said, on a plethora of platforms, including the WWE Creative _ish X account, the SE Scoops X account, Working Stiff, Rumor and Innuendo, and Ad-Free Shows YouTube page. So on behalf of the profane screw-up, Dominic D'Angelo, I'm Robert Karpolis. Best of luck in your future endeavors.